In 1997, a technician at CERN triggered a magnetic inversion anomaly during a calibration cycle. For 0.74 seconds, one internal clock recorded a timestamp from the year 2026. Then every machine on that looped subnet burned out, and the technician vanished within 48 hours. His badge number was deleted from the personnel registry. His family was reassigned protective identities. Official records claim it was a data hallucination, but declassified maintenance logs from the same week show a failover loop labeled Chrono Event Class 4 Do Not Archive. That label has since appeared in 9 other sealed incidents, one involving the Vatican, one involving a satellite that shouldn't have been active, one involving a man who died twice. These aren't theories. They're redacted archives, suppressed by design, ignored by force. What happens when buried records rewrite history? They're filed under different names, sealed in different languages, but the pattern is unmistakable. Across decades and continents, certain discoveries were intercepted, erased, or buried. Not because they were false, but because they fractured the timeline we're told to believe. These aren't folklore. They were documented, funded, and in many cases, peer-reviewed. Before they vanished, a missing satellite signal traced to a Cold War dig site, an encrypted phrase repeating across 3 decades, 2 neural experiments recording identical dreams, 10 events, no known connection. And yet, each one was officially suppressed, either by national security orders, sudden laboratory shutdowns, or unexplained disappearances. The files that remain are fragmented, corrupted, or overwritten. Some were recovered from darknet caches, others from declassified storage misfiled under environmental violations. But one detail recurs. Each case ends with a breach in chronology, logic, or memory. These archives weren't lost, they were sealed, not to protect us from fiction, but from a version of history that didn't match the one we're allowed to remember. In early 2023, a digital forensics team recovered fragments from a corrupted CERN backup drive. Inside, a file titled Index 0. Its metadata referenced 3 of the cases you're about to hear. That link has never been explained. It was overwritten 72 hours later by an encrypted NATO protocol. We obtained a copy. Some names will be redacted. Some timestamps are unverifiable. But the system behind the suppression is disturbingly consistent. 10 stories, 10 anomalies. One conclusion hiding in plain sight. Someone is managing the timeline. This isn't just about secrecy. It's about causality. And the first story is already classified. The Moscow time capsule. In the final days of 1991, a demolition crew was clearing a shuttered KGB compound on the outskirts of Moscow. Buried beneath a reinforced foundation, they found a titanium vault. Sealed tight, cold to the touch. On the lid, a corrosion-proof tag, stamped with one instruction: do not open before the year 2027. But they opened it. Inside were photographs, schematics, and a blood sample, labeled V. Putin, 2044. The documents were aged, but not old. They showed technology no Russian lab had seen in 1991. Blueprints for a microchip years ahead of civilian patents. A printed satellite map of Crimea, with unfamiliar borders. Medical data with biosignatures from a future no one had lived yet. Then came the image. A color photo of a man. Uniformed, decorated, marked, Novosibirsk Command, 2037. Facial match, over 98% identical to Vladimir Putin. At the bottom of the vault was a sealed card. One sentence, typed in a fading font: activate Zeta window only if Annex falls. And then it all vanished. 3 hours later, military intelligence arrived. Not police, not media. Every item was seized. Every witness reassigned. The crew's employment records were wiped within 48 hours. That night, satellite data shows a blacked-out grid over the district. 7 minutes of silence. No power, no comms. The incident never made the news. And the site lead, the man who first opened the vault, fled to Sweden. He requested asylum. He was denied. 4 days later, he disappeared. 2 others from the team surfaced in Finland 2 years later. They gave interviews, described what they'd seen. Both were arrested. under warrants that didn't exist, and deported. Since then, their names haven't appeared on any European border registry. The official line? Unauthorized construction, unknown object, no further inquiry. But one photo was smuggled before the sweep. It showed a mark on the side of the capsule, a string of digits, STC 1479M, Geneva. That inventory number was traced. It matched a logistics file once logged by the Particle Physics Lab in Switzerland, the same facility where a magnetic inversion experiment failed in 1997. He missed his mother's funeral. That detail was never in the report. It came from his brother, the only one still looking. But this wasn't the last vault. 11 years later, a nearly identical capsule appeared, this time in Arizona. Project Val, Stanford, 1983. In the fall of 1983, a Stanford research team launched a sleep study with one unusual variable: infrared capture of dream states. The goal was simple on paper: record brainwave patterns during lucid dreaming and translate them into visual sequences. The project was classified as VAL, short for Visual Algorithmic Lucidity Experiment. But the data refused to stay on the screen. 2 months in, the system began logging unknown identifiers, image packets the software hadn't been trained to render. Shapes, places, faces. Some matched real people. People listed as missing. One subject described, in perfect detail, the final known location of a girl who vanished in 1974. Another drew an underground corridor that matched decommissioned Cold War schematics, never released to the public. The lab archived each match. By January, they'd cataloged 47. On February 6th, the system crashed, just after logging a phrase that didn't come from the subject. It appeared in a block of encrypted characters. D, Klein 4C, cipher Z, initiate return loop. That line was never decoded, and it never appeared again. But the name matched the lead neuroscientist on the team, Dr. Eva Klein. She wasn't in the room when it logged. Her access badge had been inactive that day. She denied entering any data. 3 days later, DARPA visited the lab. Within a week, Project Veil was absorbed into a classified military directive. Funding was pulled. Civilian staff were released under sealed agreements. The core research group was relocated to an undisclosed federal site. Dr. Klein's name was quietly removed from the Stanford faculty directory. Her published work stopped that year. Her professional trail ends in March 1984. No formal explanation was ever issued. One technician came forward in 1997, nearly 15 years later. He leaked one fragment of a dream image recorded during Veil's final week. It showed a woman standing inside a ring of black pillars. Behind her, a screen. On the screen, the same string of cipher characters that had appeared in the system crash. He never gave another interview. She never went home. In 2018, a digital archivist scraping a defunct Stanford FTP server found a folder titled Zet Echo Klein, buried inside mislabeled weather logs. The file was encrypted. Inside, one line of text: cipher Z matched, returned in 38 years. From 1983, that return lands in 2021, and that's exactly when her signal came back. The Antarctic disk. In January 2009, a team of Russian and Canadian researchers began seismic scans beneath Lake Vostok. The subglacial lake buried more than 2 miles under Antarctic ice. What they found was not sediment. It was metal, bronze, fused, smooth, and circular. A perfect disk, 14 feet wide, embedded in a chamber with no known geological origin. The signal that led them there had no known frequency, a low pulsing vibration, measured in harmonic intervals, not radio hertz. When mapped through a waveform translator, it resembled cosmic background radiation. Inverted, the disk was lifted with a cryo rig on February 3rd. Its underside was covered in patterns, not writing, but grooves. One pattern repeated, a spiral of 6 concentric arcs, matching the golden ratio. The lead acoustic engineer, Adrian Walczek, ran the sound pulse through spectral analysis. The output made no sense. It wasn't just sound, it encoded spatial coordinates. Except the coordinates didn't point to Earth. They pointed to void space. That night, Wolczek sent an encrypted file to a colleague in Norway. The subject line, "Disk is not inert. Lockdown now." Then, nothing. By February 10th, all researchers were evacuated. The project was shuttered without notice. The reason, they said, seismic instability. Except no seismic events were recorded that month. Within 72 hours, a private security unit from an unnamed subcontractor flew in from Argentina. The dig was sealed. Access was revoked. One journalist from Chile attempted to cross into the restricted zone. She was detained and deported. Wolczek's name was removed from the Polar Research Institute registry. Colleagues say he moved to Patagonia, off-grid, unreachable. But before the blackout, one waveform was saved. A brief pulse, 17 seconds long, encoded with a repeating signature. 6 tones, then a pause. It matches no known language, but the intervals correspond exactly to a quantum encryption model used by defense contractors in the early 2000s. That model was developed for only one purpose: entangled data packets, not human communication. The disk has never been shown to the public. Satellite images of the site now show a flat glacier with no trace of excavation. Even the research logs have been scrubbed, but the pulse was archived. And in 2021, the same pattern appeared again. In the Indian Ocean. That signal lasted only 3 seconds, long enough to confirm one thing: the disk was never alone. Operation Abacus, Egypt, 1956. In the summer of 1956, a joint British and Egyptian archaeological team was conducting a routine excavation near Saqqara, south of Cairo. The dig site was considered minor. No tombs, no inscriptions, just collapsed limestone and minor funerary artifacts. But under one slab, they found a cavity, sealed with copper bolts. Inside it was a mechanism, unlike anything in Egyptian archaeology. At the center, a ring of stone mounted with magnetic vanes, rotational, balanced. It spun when touched and aligned with true north. The object was removed under supervision. Photos show concentric rings with coiled grooves, eerily similar to modern quantum field coils. The team's engineer, Thomas Arlston, compared the structure to an electrical array. In his logbook, he wrote, "This isn't ceremonial. It's built for resonance, possibly computation." 2 days later, British intelligence arrived. The site was sealed. All photographs were labeled non-anthropological anomalies. The object was removed. The excavation was reclassified as cultural interference. Dr. Farouk El-Din, who led the Egyptian side of the dig, was reassigned. He never published again. Arlston was transferred to the UK Atomic Energy Authority. He died 6 months later. Heart failure, age 39. No records list the object's current location, but one drawing survived, smuggled from a lab archive in 1974. It shows the mechanism's core. 7 glyphs surrounding a circular hub. The glyphs don't match Egyptian, Greek, or Sumerian, but they do match. 30 years later, identical symbols appeared in a Cold War field report from East Germany. That report described a deep Earth anomaly emitting structured magnetic pulses. The language used was nearly identical to Arlston's: coiled magnetic frequency, engineered. The report was sealed under Operation Echo, and yet one cipher in that file was left untranslated. Until 2001, when a linguistics researcher in Berlin cracked a partial key. That key matched one of the glyphs from Saqqara. The mechanism was never meant for ceremony. It was designed to respond, to spin, to send something back. What that something was, no one ever received. The only known paper trail ends in a restricted Ministry of Defense annex. But in 2020, a private database breach exposed a single image file, black and white, grainy, labeled Abacus Event, Geneva Transit Hold, Geneva, again. And this isn't the last time that location appears. The Telos Room, Denver International Airport, 1992. In late 1992, construction crews expanding the underground tunnels beneath Denver International Airport discovered an anomaly, a sealed chamber not listed on any blueprint. The room was small. No door, only one way in, by force. Inside, they found a cube-shaped server node, old, silent, but powered. It was connected to nothing, yet it was alive. Security video, later leaked, shows the node blinking once every 6 seconds. A blue pulse, perfectly timed. Technicians traced the signal, but it didn't go anywhere local. It was pinging a defunct satellite. Decommissioned in 1973. That satellite, Oscar 7, had been declared non-operational for nearly 2 decades. Its last known orbit, polar. The node had no manufacturer label, just a symbol. 6 black triangles forming a spiral. No agency has claimed that mark. In the days that followed, 3 engineers quit the job. One refused to speak. Another moved to Alaska. The last was issued a non-disclosure order and disappeared from industry registries. Then the server went dark. Homeland Security intervened within 72 hours. The chamber was sealed again. Covered, poured over, buried. Airport records list the event as a data infrastructure error. But the blueprints were revised, and the room, now labeled T7, no longer exists on any public map. One former security officer broke silence in 2008. He claimed the node activated only when a specific boarding gate was powered, gate C39. When asked what the node did, he gave one answer: it listens. Before that interview aired, he was silenced with a federal injunction. He missed his daughter's graduation. That same year, amateur radio enthusiasts detected an anomalous signal bouncing off Oscar 7. It lasted 4.6 seconds. Same pulse interval, same spiral waveform. The data was dismissed as interference. Skeptics argue the video was part of an alternate reality game. Staged, edited, and exaggerated. But the coordinates traced to a real maintenance shaft. And that shaft has since been resealed in concrete. In 2019, a single ping was recorded again, this time from Greenland. It matched the node's last pulse cycle down to the nanosecond. A private firm in Oslo attempted to triangulate the source. Their analysis triggered a cyber attack within minutes. They shut down the project, all servers wiped. But one log entry was left behind. Recovered from a backup drive. Receiver online, awaiting return transmission, Telos D2047. No origin, no signature, just the name. Telos, the same name once etched onto the Denver node, in microscopic print. And this isn't the only time Telos appears. Manuscript 415H, Portugal 1601, rediscovered 1987. In a climate-controlled archive beneath the University of Coimbra, Portugal. A forgotten manuscript sat untouched for nearly 4 centuries. It was catalogued under a wrong title, filed as Herbal Compendium 1601, but it wasn't botanical. Inside were alchemical instructions, yes, but not for gold, not for elixirs. They described something else, a method of fusing silica with carbon under controlled vacuum heat, step by step, temperature ranges, pressure tables, schematic symbols. In modern terms, a recipe for microsilicon. That shouldn't be possible. The manuscript, labeled 415H, was rediscovered in 1987 by Dr. Luis Cardoso, a materials historian. At first, he assumed it was metaphor, but he ran simulations. The instructions worked. He presented his findings at a closed symposium in Florence. 2 weeks later, the manuscript was seized by Vatican representatives under emergency ecclesiastical claim, a rare clause used only 6 times since the 18th century. No explanation given. Dr. Cardoso lost his university credentials. His passport was revoked. He was barred from publishing under any academic institution within the EU. He moved to Brazil, died in 1992. No known obituary was printed, but one microfilm survived. It had been sent anonymously to a colleague who archived it for years without realizing its significance. In 2011, the reel was scanned. Digital enhancement revealed 2 missing pages, torn from the original. Their absence wasn't random. Page 14 and page 38. Both missing entries referenced something called the reflective engine. No other document from that era uses the phrase. But the term appears again, once, in a declassified 1970s field report from NATO. That report describes a fragment of fused silicon discovered in northern France, dated centuries older than any known manufacturing technique, laced with carbon impurities identical to what manuscript 415H describes. That fragment was sealed under Defense Protocol Lambda. and moved to a site in Geneva. The pages never reappeared until 2016, when a collector uploaded scans of 17th century papers acquired from a private estate in Bologna. Among them, 2 sheets, watermarked with the seal of Coimbra. Their ink matched the manuscript, so did the handwriting. Both pages referenced the reflective engine, but not as a mechanism, as a mirror, a loop, a tool for memory transfer, not storage, but echo. Encoded in glass, one passage read, "That which thinks may think again if shown its own image." He never saw his work published. His son now works in digital forensics, and according to him, a 3rd page was rumored, never found, but referenced in a footnote. The footnote mentioned a location. Telos, that word again. The Ash Grove Transmission, Iceland, 2003. On August 2, 2003, a seismic research station near Thingvellir, Iceland, recorded a deep frequency burst unlike anything it had measured before. Not tectonic, not volcanic, not natural. The pulse lasted 17 seconds, and it came from below. Engineers checked every line. No fault, no glitch. The waveform was tight, clean, structured. When filtered through binary conversion, the signal produced a grid of coordinates, latitudinal precision down to the 5th decimal. The location it pointed to? A restricted zone in Kazakhstan. Under Russian jurisdiction since 1961, no public records exist for that site. But satellite imagery shows a consistent anomaly. A heat plume, exactly where the signal directed. Iceland's station manager, Einar Sigurdsson, reported the finding to the European Geosciences Union. 2 days later, he was contacted by NATO representatives. Then, he went silent. Not officially silenced. Not missing, just absent. Since 2004, Sigurdsson has never published, lectured, or logged seismic data again. His house in Reykjavik remains empty. His utilities, still active. One technician on his team made a private backup of the raw waveform. He released it online in 2007, anonymously. That version revealed something new. At the 12-second mark, the signal shifts. A second frequency emerges. Staggered by half a beat, it creates a syncopation, a rhythm, almost a signature. That pattern was sent to multiple institutions for analysis. One lab, in Norway, responded with a match, not to sound, to geometry. The staggered pulse mirrored the arrangement of 6 stone markers in a Celtic grove, near Bangor, Wales. That site is known as Ash Grove. No known cultural link connects Iceland, Kazakhstan, and Wales. Except for the pattern, the grove, mapped from above, forms a fractal spiral, the exact structure described in Archive 3. On the bronze Antarctic disk, the Icelandic pulse is the only signal to match that shape in sound. Until 2014, when a similar burst occurred in the South Pacific. That data was seized by naval intelligence, and no waveform was released. But there's one more detail. The Icelandic burst contained a metadata tag, embedded digitally, invisible to the naked eye, extracted only through forensic software. The tag read, Archive 7, Forward Echo, Telos. That name again. The transmission had a name, before it was discovered. And the coordinates? They lead straight to Kazakhstan, the restricted zone. The one hiding Site I-42. Site E-42, Kazakhstan, 1972. The coordinates from the Icelandic signal pointed to a location long erased from public maps. A plateau near Semipalatinsk, Kazakhstan. Locals knew the area by one name, the Dead Lattice. In 1972, Soviet engineers initiated a geological excavation there. The official reason, uranium core mapping. But internal memos recovered after the USSR collapse revealed another designation. Site I-42, a deep earth anomaly, 30 meters underground, cylindrical, smooth, lined with what they called fused quartz. Quartz, but not natural. Each layer of the material contained microscopic circuitry, etched not with tools, but by alteration in the molecular lattice. Lab notes described it as pre-integrated photonic logic. The samples could route light. They dated the quartz using carbon material found between fracture points. The result? 11,400 years before present day. That number was rejected by official review, but the notes remained. The excavation halted after the third chamber was breached. An internal collapse killed 2 engineers. Another man, a geophysicist, suffered retinal burns from exposure. He lost his vision permanently. His final audio log, later leaked, contains one line, "It's not a chamber, it's a gate." Within 2 weeks, the site was detonated. Controlled charges collapsed the entire corridor system. All seismic evidence was buried. Soviet state news never acknowledged the explosion, but a thermal bloom was recorded by an American satellite. 2 days after the logs ended, one drone survived the collapse, footage corrupted, but a single still frame remains. It shows the interior wall of the chamber, a ring, 6 black pillars, and a woman standing at the center. The same image, drawn decades earlier by a subject in Project Veil. Eva Klein's dream journal had contained a sketch nearly identical. The woman, the pillars, the ring. The pattern was real. More than that, it had been seen before. The recovered frame was labeled K Telos, confirmed structure match, vault index pending. The Telos designation appeared again, and now linked Kazakhstan to Stanford, to something older than civilization. One final note. At the edge of the chamber wall, just visible behind the figure, was a panel. It contained 3 glyphs. Those glyphs matched the Saqqara mechanism. From Egypt, 1956. Same symbols, same arrangement. Over 5,000 years apart, on different continents, etched into 2 unrelated artifacts, yet identical. This wasn't a mistake. This was a network, and it was never meant to be found. Klein's return. Encrypted transmission, 2021. On April 18, 2021, a cybersecurity team in Helsinki intercepted a fragmented signal buried inside a corrupted satellite relay. It shouldn't have been active. The transmission carried no origin stamp, no sender, but it was encrypted, using a cipher last seen in 1983. That cipher had a name, Cipher Z. It matched the final log entry from Project Veil, the dream mapping experiment run by Dr. Eva Klein, the same log that triggered a full DARPA lockdown nearly 40 years earlier. The team decrypted the file over 6 weeks. What they found wasn't code. It was voice, a woman's voice. Calm, precise, disembodied. The vocal pattern was run through 2 biometric systems. Both confirmed a 97% match to Eva Klein. The file contained one phrase, "A veil cycle complete. Return window, 9.3 minutes. Echo closed." Then silence. It lasted only 12 seconds. But in that time, the file generated a data string, a rapid flash of time-stamped logs, each one marked with known anomalies. Ash Grove, Site I-42, Saqqara, Telos. Each archive from previous decades, listed in sequence, as if they had been indexed, as if someone, or something, had been watching. Then the IP logs went dark. All backups were wiped. The Finnish team's server farm was taken offline by what appeared to be a coordinated cyber breach. No demands, no fingerprints, no code, just a disappearance. The data was gone, but a single printout survived, saved to analog hours before the breach. It showed one final entry, labeled Timeline Index 0. That term had only appeared once before, buried inside a CERN system log from 1997. Same phrasing, same punctuation. Eva Klein's signal had returned, but from where? The satellite channel she used had been inoperative since 1992. Its known trajectory placed it 300 kilometers beyond orbital decay. Dead, but somehow used. She never went home. Her last known photograph was taken in 1984, smiling, alive, unaware of the sequence that would follow. Now her voice had returned, across decades, across frequencies, and across systems thought disconnected. The last page of her research journal contained one question: what if memory isn't stored, but received? This wasn't the end of her story. It was a callback, a re-entry, and her message came with coordinates. They pointed to one location, the one site not yet named aloud, the vault. Index 0. Timeline Index 0. Origin unknown. Recovered 2023. In April 2023, a digital archivist working with an abandoned server cluster in Nevada recovered a folder hidden behind a misnamed core dump. The folder's name was a single line of code. Root D Index 0. It hadn't been accessed in 19 years. Inside were 7 files: text, image, audio, and one sequence marked as executable, all encrypted. But one file opened. It was titled Timeline Index 0. The document appeared blank, but under layer scanning, it revealed embedded timestamps, not just dates, but event branches, forks. Each fork showed a historical incident with alternate endings. One branch listed JFK, survived. Another, Berlin Wall, never constructed. A third, 9/11, intercepted on tarmac. All impossible, all hypothetical, except they weren't. Each fork contained microdata, weather patterns, casualty rosters, broadcast snippets that matched real-world analogs. But none of them matched our timeline. They referenced alternate versions. The system used to build the document left a trace. Metadata showed it was created with a formatting tool last seen in early CERN experiments during the 1997 magnetic inversion failure. That event, quietly logged as a temporal containment breach, had never been explained. The same CERN system that flagged Chrono Event Class 4 Do Not Archive. It wasn't just a coincidence. It was the point of origin. And this document, Timeline Index 0, was the indexing key. A map, not of places, but of sequence. A sequence someone had been tracking or managing. One image file remained. Low resolution, corrupted at the edges. It showed a vaulted chamber with 6 pillars and a screen at the center. On the screen, a blinking prompt, just one line. Return confirmed, vault sealed. Next fork 2047. That date had appeared once before, etched into the Denver server node. The one labeled Telos, everything loops here. The disk in Antarctica. The glyphs in Egypt, the voice of Ava Klein. The pulse beneath Iceland. The chamber in Kazakhstan. The symbol on the time capsule. Each event, centuries apart, referenced the same system. Telos. No nation claims it. No agency defends it. No university teaches it. But the signals exist. The records were real. And if Timeline Index 0 is accurate, we are not in the first version of history. We are living inside one of the branches. Not the original, not the only. Just this one. And the final file? It was labeled D-End, Conscious Layer Resync, awaiting observer approval. Awaiting approval. The vault may already be open. If memory can be altered, is time even real? If the past is recorded, overwritten, then recorded again, what happens to truth? One could argue none of this is real. That the data is fractured. That signals bounce, patterns emerge, and coincidences mislead. You could say the files were fake. The voices were synthetic. The documents misinterpreted. But the records exist. Scattered, yes. But persistent. Too consistent to ignore. Every anomaly, every buried archive, shares the same signature. A divergence. Not noise. Not glitch. A choice. And what if someone, or something, has been mapping those choices? What if this version of history was never supposed to be the last? Somewhere, deep beneath the structure we call reality, a sequence waits for confirmation. Index 0, vault sealed, awaiting approval. But from who? Not governments, not machines. From the observer, you. Because in the end, the fork only exists if someone sees it. If someone remembers the version that came before. So now you've seen it. The capsule, the chamber, the disk, the glyphs, the signal, the voice that should not have returned. Did. You weren't supposed to hear it, but you did. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the real archive was never hidden, just waiting to be recognized. So now you have a choice. Would you archive it, or would you erase it?